Welcome everyone. As you're coming in, we've got about 40 to 50 participants. So we're just gonna give a few minutes before everyone gets in here. Just to remind you, it is being recorded, just so we can replay it back at a later time for most of the information. Hey, Margie. Now, did you sign up just because you saw my name?
You bet I did.
I haven't seen you at a NIRSA thing in ever, so.
Oh no, this is the second time I've been invited.
There you go.
Isn't that nice? I get included. I just got out of the pool, literally. So took my hour lunch break in the pool. It was great.
Nice.
How's everyone? Good?
Very good.
Excellent. Happy to hear it. Yeah, we're all good too.
That's good.
Yeah.
So we're just going to give it a few more minutes, folks, because there was about 40 some odd people that were registered for this roundtable discussion talk today. We're just around 24, 25. So we'll let a few more of them catch up and catch in. Joanne, it's not 100%, but it's probably 75% that we will have varsity sport in the fall, but don't quote me on that. Don't quote me. I don't want your daughter to be upset when she's like, that guy said there was.
We'll take it. 75% is a lot better than 0.
Yeah.
At least if there's some training, like it may not be, you know, competition, but even getting them back into the gym with some training would be fantastic.
Yeah, we're just waiting for, we're just entering stage 1 here in Ontario, or whatever the new stage 1 is, tomorrow. So if everything stays status quo, it'll be mid-August when we hit stage 3, which then allows us to have more of that indoor training.
Yeah.
I do know though they'll look to have some of the outdoor training start probably in the next few weeks.
Perfect.
For those that are still in the area.
Well, I have to say that volleyball coach of yours, that Jen Nelson, boy, she's got those girls working through the summer. She's
Good.
a fantastic coach.
I will pass it on to her. Good.
Yeah, she is fantastic. She's really keeping, you know, sometimes, I don't know, Brooklyn goes, Mom, I have so much to do. And like, this is just another thing on my plate. But the positive spin to that is that she's really ensuring that the girls stay connected and interested in the sport and interested in varsity athletics. Because I think for a lot of students, if you don't have that connection, it's so easy to just, you know, let it slip and before you know it, you're not interested anymore.
Yeah, the coaches have done a great job of trying to keep them as engaged as possible throughout the year, as I'm sure on most schools. So
yeah, there's a real positive to that.
All right, folks, we're gonna wait maybe 2 more minutes. It's almost 25-2. We'll let a few more people that are showing up enter and get in here. That's okay, Angela. As long as you can participate, even through the chat box, that's great. We appreciate it. So cognizant of time, it's 25 to 2, and it's we're going to be discussing equity, diversity, inclusion, and there's tons and tons of tangents, so I want to get going. Just so everyone is aware, this session is being recorded. We will be having a couple breakout room sessions here as well. Those unfortunately don't get recorded. However, I will be facilitating when you come back to kind of share some of the in-person conversations you're having. For those of you that might not be having full microphone capability when you do go in the breakout room later on, just share that, and you can use the chat box as best as possible as well. My name is Peter Mumford. I'm the Associate Director for Campus Recreation at York University. I'm going to be facilitating this discussion. Start with the elephant in the room. Yes, I'm a white male cisgender, so probably the least diverse person around. And you might be like, well, why is he leading this discussion? Part of it is I put my hand up and said, I will lead the discussion. The other part, I've been doing this discussion with the NIRSA Assembly on our social justice subgroup. We've created a milestone map that will be coming out shortly as well. And I'll be sharing bits of it here on our discussion as well. I'm also leading our diversity committee at York University as well, facilitating those discussions and how that will look as well. So most of it's just the first part though. The rest of it is just some extra sub-layer stuff. So welcome to everyone. Really appreciate you coming out here. Not sure if everyone is from Canada, and if you're not, welcome as well. There's lots of perspectives to share. Before I get going, Sarah, was there any quick housekeeping NIRSA things to identify? She's shaking her head, fantastic. If you have questions or comments, folks, as we're going along in the presentation, please put them in the chat box. I'll try to address them, or Sarah will try to address them as quickly as we can as well. Just going to share my screen now. I have a general presentation. If I can get a quick heads up, everyone can see the nice 4 hands holding each other and not my calendar. Fantastic. You know, technology, sometimes it always gets messed up. So I wanted to start us off with, just in case you didn't know, NIRSA has put out their statement for equity, diversity, and inclusion. And it's very fruitful. So if you haven't had the chance to read it yet, I'm just going to share it here with you, but I've also, we can add it to the end with the resources. So NIRSA celebrates equity, diversity, and inclusion. We embrace these pillars of excellence as crucial to healthy people and healthy communities. The value statements. NIRSA believes that its core values are strengthened when all members have a voice and are encouraged to contribute. Every member of humanity has a contribution to make to the whole. It is our duty to encourage and promote that contribution. Equity, diversity, and inclusion are an active process that requires continuous commitment to promote healthy people, healthy communities, and the overall success of present and future generations. Action statements. Our values are realized through or by fostering a culture of open-mindedness, compassion, and inclusiveness among individuals and groups. Actively building a community whose members have diverse cultures, backgrounds, and life experiences. Providing effective leadership in the development, coordination, implementation, and assessment of comprehensive array of programs and services to promote diversity and understanding of differences. Creating and maintaining opportunities for engagement, education, and discourse related to issues of equity, diversity, and inclusion. Identifying competencies that are essential to creating environments enriched with diverse views and people. Providing educational opportunities toward the development of socially responsible leaders who are willing to engage in the discourse and decision-making that can lead to the transformational change toward learning, achievement, healthy people, and healthy communities. Honoring freedom of expression, ideals of citizenry, and civility of discourse is fundamental to personal, professional, and organizational growth. Challenging and dismantling systemic oppression. Establishing and maintaining the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Commission to promote social justice and diversity in all association activities. Address issues related, but not limited to, race, ethnicity, culture, age, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, ability, national origin, veteran status, social economic class, religion, and professional status. and coordinate educational resources and opportunities for its members, reaching beyond the association to establish beneficial relationships with individuals and institutional partners who share mutual goals and interests. There's a lot there to digest. If you haven't had a chance to go onto the NIRSA webpage and download it, please do so. I encourage it, along with the EDI guide, which I have as a reference on the last page as well. So for today, couple objectives. One is make sure that we're having an open and safe discussion, especially when we're in our breakout rooms. I really want to stress, folks, that our discussions need to be safe places. We want people to be able to share about their experiences. At the same time, though, we want you, if you have a question, if you have something that it's always been bubbling underneath and you need to ask, please ask. However, be mindful of how you ask. Try to refrain from using stereotypical words or terminology. Try to ensure that you are describing your question or your situation in an open and respectful manner. We're going to do a couple of questions on one surrounding how do I demonstrate what EDI is, and we'll get more into that. The other one is what's happening in my department or campus, and we'll get more into that as well. There's change ahead. And where do we start? It starts with us. I can't see everyone's face on our camera screens, so I'm going to make a assumption here, and I don't like making assumptions, but those of you who know me know that I don't like making assumptions. Most of us are white. Most of us are probably cisgender heterosexual. It needs to start with us in that aspect, because if we want the change to happen in our departments, we need to foster that environment. So those leaders coming up will be the new leaders in our department. And I'm not saying I want all of us to quit our jobs and allow someone who's a marginalized person to take our job over. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying we need to foster that growth and development, though, so someone who might be historically in a marginalized group can see themselves in our position, can see themselves leading the change, and that it'll be a continual effort, so that when we're coming back to these sessions as a volunteer in our retirement, we'll be proud of what's happened to the entire culture around us. Dream big, set your goals, and take action. There's no limit to what we can do with EDI, and again, it does start with us. I would be remiss, especially for us here in Canada, if we didn't take a moment just to recognize a few massive moments that have happened in the last 2 weeks. First off, the discovery of the unmarked graves in Kamloops of the 215 children. For many of us, this is such a horrific review of our history. However, we need to make sure we embrace it and recognize it, and don't forget that we can do better. The second one, of course, happened just recently in London, Ontario. If you hadn't heard, 4 Muslims were driven down by a young white male who, for all intent being right now, they are labeling it as a hate crime and possibly a terrorist action. Again, it just does showcase that this type of social justice does not end. It is here in Canada, unfortunately, and is very prevalent. So we need to do what we can with the resources we have to do the best we can to help limit and mitigate those types of actions in the future. Before I get into our kind of set of discussion topics, I just wanted to I'll just do a little stop here so I can see more of the screen. If there's any questions or comments before we move into some of the discussion topics from anyone. Flipping between screens. Not seeing any blue hands up as well. By all means, folks, if there's a question or comment, if there's something we don't cover off in today's discussion, let us know, and we'll dive into it as best we can. Let's go back to the sharing. So discussion topic number 1. As a professional in collegiate recreation, how are you demonstrating equity, diversity, and inclusion? What are some obstacles from a personal or a professional or even institution are there that need to be overcome? So it's kind of a 2-parter here. So what's going to happen? Sarah, with the magic of Zoom, will split all of us up into groups of maximum of 4. And I'm sure many of us have done this before in other topics on other Zoom calls here and everything. What we would like to do is have you talk about how you as a professional in collegiate recreation are demonstrating EDI, and maybe you're not, maybe you haven't gotten there yet, and that's okay as well. The second part to that question is, what are some of those obstacles that are either preventing you or limiting you in that personal, professional, or institutional manner as well? We'll give about 10 minutes. Again, I'll probably have to about 4 people. It is all variable. So unfortunately, some of you, you might be, like I see Art on here, and Art and I work together at York. There's a slight chance Art and I could be in the same room. And if that's the case, I'll boot him out and I'll go to, no, we'll figure it out though. Is everyone good? All right, so with a magic wand, Sarah's gonna poof us away into some magical room and have a great discussion, and we'll see you back in about 10 minutes and have some recourse back with everyone.
Peter, do you want me to recreate same people in same rooms or do shuffle them? You're muted.
If we can shuffle them, that would be
Yeah.
probably great. I know
Yeah.
it was just Sarah and I in the one room.
Yeah, I saw. Yeah, what I'll do is I'll just recreate them and then I'll look and I can move people around too. If there's two people, I'll just split them when they go.
Perfect, yeah. That's all right. We'll give time for everyone to come back and then we'll do a bit of a reflection and then I'll introduce the milestone guide that our group made.
Oh, yeah, perfect.
And then that'll lead into the second question, so.
All right. Like 30-second countdown and people should come back.
Welcome back, welcome back. We're still waiting for the rest of everyone to come back. The discussions have all ended. Hello back, everyone. Great to see everyone's smiling faces. So I hope you had some great conversations. So let me just. So we're going to put some people on the spot here. Actually, we won't put you on the spot. We'll have you put up your hand and you can talk about it. What were some key points that came from your discussions? You don't want to put up their hand and offer. I can't see everyone, so you're talking, Marty, but we can't hear you. And now you're muted again.
Am I on?
There you go.
Okay. I don't have anything here to put my hand up. I don't know what's happening. I seriously. Okay, so we talked about the NIRSA challenge on racism, the 21-day challenge. It seemed, well, two of us have done that recently and it's dynamic and I highly recommend it to anybody. Definitely gave you a better educational piece than probably what most of us learned in elementary school or high school. Fabulous, absolutely fabulous. And lots of little bits and pieces that you can take away and bring to your department to help make it better. I mean, we all try on a daily basis to make it better for everybody, for all our students, our community members, whomever that comes through our doors. We always try to be welcoming and make it better. And then most of us have had that experience where well, you're not treating me the way you should be treating me. You're a racist. You're this. I'm like, what? Me? What did I do? Please help me, make me do this better. So this NIRSA 21-day challenge was so enlightening. I highly recommend it if you haven't done it. We also talked about when George Floyd was murdered, how impactful that was to so many of us. And we're now looking to educate ourselves and try to walk the walk on a daily basis. One of the things I said in my group is my next door neighbor is a charge nurse, and we were talking about doctors and whatnot. And we both went to this Wharton clinic, if anybody knows what that is, for weight loss. And when I went there was an African Canadian doctor that was running it. And she said, no, he's East Indian. I said, that's not the same person. It was very comfortable to have that conversation and not feel that you would be judged by saying East Indian or, you know, like a Black Canadian doctor. It was great. It was so wonderful. My son, one of the things I wanted to say was he has a friend who is dating a woman who is a Black Canadian who has Black Canadian children. And they actually said to him that, oh, you know, you're lucky, you're a white Canadian, you know, you are treated better. And he said, why would you think that? He said, my parents you know, check by check. My parents don't have a big house or fancy cars. I went to Thorold High School. Why would you say that? So they actually went, oh, I guess so. You know, he's not entitled. He had to work for his job and whatnot. So he's having that conversation, which is really nice to hear. He's 31, having a conversation with a 16-year-old. So that was really nice, you know, and I'm very proud that he did that. And I'm very proud I had said that I was raised in a home. I'm 62, and I was raised in a home where there wasn't racism at all. My parents, we had all kinds of people in our house all the time, and it was great. So that's what we do in our home. So it's nice to see that my son was doing the same thing. I guess it was really nice to have that conversation with everybody. So the group was talking about, I know Julia had to leave for another meeting, but they've hired, Dino said he hired an EDI student coordinator, I believe. They want to change wording to equal employment opportunity. They want to be able to have people that can help in a gender specific recreational setting. Maybe Dino could comment on that a little bit more, and someone who could help with exceptionalities. What else did they say? Oh, a pride document has been created, which is really nice. Yeah, it was a really good conversation. I'll let someone else go.
That's great, Margie. Thank you. That sounds excellent. Was that Nino or was that Dino that you were saying that had to hire the EDI student coordinator?
And Julia, but Julia had to leave at 2 for another meeting. So maybe Dino could talk a little bit more if he's willing.
Yeah, go ahead, Nino.
Yes, it's Nino.
Nino.
It was me that was saying, my video on too, since I'm talking.
Fantastic.
It was me referencing some of those things Margie was talking about. But one challenge we have is the topic of gender equity. I have 58 student staff, and so I have a big group, so I can do this where I can have, what would be the number, 29 and 29 male and female staff. But how do I do that without making assumptions? And how do you ask if someone doesn't want to say? Yeah, they have the option of saying, don't want to say, but it's a slippery slope that I'm having trouble walking along. So I've had my student staff, who's our equity lead, reach out to one of the offices on our campus, Office of Vice Provost, Equity, Community Inclusion, asking that question. So I am hoping for some valuable feedback from them on how to deal with that concern in our area. Otherwise, to date, it's been making assumptions based on someone's appearance. And we have women's only hours in the gym too. So I need women only, or people who identify as women, to supervise that space.
So let's maybe just take a quick segue. Does anyone have any points of wisdom or advice other than the direction that Nino's taking in terms of what that would look like for workplace gender equity? I know, a tough topic, huh? That's what, Stacey, you look like you're going to put your hand up. You're on mute though.
Yeah, I think I'm off now.
Yep.
What I'm wondering though is, like, when if you're doing good practices in hiring and you're hiring based on certain things that you like, the position needs certain things, they need certain characteristics, and if you're hiring people based on that, do they have to say, like, do you have to be able to say, I have 50% of people that identify as women and I have 50% of people that identify as men? If you've developed a system where it isn't about, where it's not going to favor one or the other, where it's fairly balanced, and you're hiring based on the best candidate, mindful of what that candidate is bringing and what you're aiming for, do you need to be able to say that 50%, 50%, or can we not just hire really good people that get along well together, and source people from a variety, make a lot of different connections on campus where as a athletics and recreation center, they know that they have a home. Like, we have our First People's House here. Can we not have a person there that we can connect with when we know that there's job openings, and just start building relationships to start pulling people together and focus on hiring the best people, with some mindful of, we want a variety.
Great point, Stacy. Thank you. Again, it's a very difficult position. I don't know if there's a simple, easy answer as well. Did anybody else from their other groups want to talk about some of the key points of discussion that came up from the last one?
Yeah, we had some really great discussion with our group. Focused on some of the things that each of our institutions are doing. So creating, most importantly, the opportunities to facilitate these kinds of conversations in a number of different pathways. So whether it be through a task force or an educational seminar, a town hall that was held specifically for coaches, being represented on a number of committees throughout the university and the campus itself, having those strong ties to an EDI office that may be on campus or within the municipality, and then just sort of touching on what Stacy had left at the beginning or at the end there. We've also at UBCO had the opportunity to create a sort of hiring campaign where we are able to connect with a number of different organizations or departments across campus, so that we are reaching a broader population of student staff for us. So just rather than seeking out staff with just within our own department, reaching out to the other departments on campus to see what they have to bring to our sort of complemented team. So those are a few of the points that we had discussed.
That's great, Jackie. Thank you. Sandra from Windsor, you have your hand up. Just in case there's another Sandra on here and I'm not seeing.
Thanks, Peter. And thanks, Peter, on behalf of NIRSA Canada for facilitating today. We greatly appreciate your time and your commitment to help us all. In our group, we talked about a number of different initiatives that we were doing across our campuses. But one thing we did all agree upon is that there was a lot going on. A lot going on at different levels of the university, within your faculty, within your department, between athletics and recreation, and in knowing what to do and where to go and what direction to take was somewhat a little overwhelming. I know at our university, I explained to our group that our president didn't come out with a statement quite soon enough or with enough detail that was appreciated by those marginalized populations impacted by George Floyd and his killing. And there were, from that came a number of issues that resurfaced that were occurring at our university that again weren't apparent to the masses. So there was quite a bit of discourse then starting on our own campus about what was being done and what wasn't being done. And then certainly from the athletics and recreation perspective, I mean, they looked to our athletes as leaders, and there was an issue amongst one of our teams as well. So all of a sudden it seemed everything was coming to a head, and people were just doing things almost spontaneously without thinking through the process. And some initiatives were appreciated, others weren't appreciated. So what we found ourselves doing within our faculty, and we're unique at the University of Windsor, our athletics and recreation reports to an academic unit, and so we report to a dean. And so our faculty has always had an equity committee as long as I've been an employee there as well as a student. And our equity committee immediately took a more of an inclusive approach to what we were doing and making sure that we were unified in our message. But the first thing that we had to recognize, and much like you said, Peter, at the start, is we needed much more education and awareness. So as much as it was great to hop on the social media bandwagon and start posting things and supporting, what was most important is that we looked inside ourselves and what our biases were, what our prejudices were, and what our lack of knowledge was. And so since last year, our Department of Athletics and Recreation has been aggressively increasing our education and awareness. So the NIRSA 21-Day Challenge was probably one of the first things that we took part of, and it was supported by our athletics directors. Some of our coaches took part of it, and it was great that NIRSA offered that. And I can say that, again, being a department of 1.5 people in recreation at the University of Windsor, without the guidance and the leadership of NIRSA, I don't know if we would have been as effective in doing what we were doing with EDI and approaching the topic and educating ourselves. So again, kudos to NIRSA for leading us through this, but it does really make us recognize there's so much work to be done, and it's not just the work of one person. It has to be supported by the central administration. It has to be supported by a variety of team players, and you need that diversity around the table. And therefore you need to call upon those individuals that have been impacted by prejudice and discrimination, and you need to ask and have those difficult conversations. And so again, for privileged white people like such as myself, it's hard to do that. But that was the one message I received in talking to my students is what can I do to help you? And the first thing they said is just ask me how I'm doing and just be there to help. And you know what, that was the first step, and it really did open up so many more opportunities and open up a little bit of that door for your students and your staff to trust you. And that's the biggest barrier we have, is there is no trust, and you have to build that trust. And it takes you putting on those equity EDI lenses and wearing them all the time, and everything that you do and say, and how you carry yourself. So the learning that we have done so far with our athletics and recreation department, we started with just social identity, understanding what makes each of us who we are and how that changes, recognizing our prejudices, our biases, both conscious and unconscious. And then our next level of training we did was on microaggressions. So it's not just a one and done. We've committed to this, and we'll continue to add more learning opportunities for our department, our athletes, and our students as we move along.
Thanks, Sandra. That's fantastic. Really quickly, either for those of you on camera, you can use your physical hand. For those of you off camera, you can use a reaction hand if you want. How many have participated in the 21-day NIRSA challenge? See one. Sandra's got her hand up. So only a few of us. So again, I highly recommend, if you haven't had that opportunity, please go onto the NIRSA website. Sarah, it's still there, I believe, that they can participate.
Yes. Yep. I'll go ahead and drop information in the chat later.
That's fantastic. Trust me, folks, you will really benefit from it. It'll be great. No problem, Lane. Thank you for joining us. So I'm going to move on, cognizant of our time. We've only got about 15 minutes to the rest of the topic and discussion here. So really quickly, folks, I'm going to share with you that milestone guide I talked about that the Assembly created. And this is more or less to help universities and colleges across North America identify where their department, not necessarily the university, might be in having an EDI committee. This is just the rough guide of it. I've put it kind of more in the notes. There will be a formalized creation of it, and it'll come out soon through NIRSA. So originally the first step, there's no EDI committee at all in your department. The university might have some formal group. However, the big thing here is no one in your department recognizes a need to have this one. There's no formal training, etc. So that's kind of stage one. Stage two is department doesn't have a committee, but there's recognition they need one. And the university does have some level of formal training, but it's quite minimal in that approach. Level three, you now have a committee, and there's maybe not actionable items, but you're in the process of doing some of the following. Your EDI priorities are being developed. You're building those relationships across campus with other departments who are doing the same. A diversity statement for your department is being created, and you're learning how to advocate with different communities on campus. Annual training and education for full-time staff is ongoing, and there's an intro into intentional specific EDI programming that you might offer. The fourth level, there's an EDI committee with staff deliverables now. So everything in level three, plus recognition of a cultural shift in staff and participants, is based upon pre and post evaluations. There's ongoing assessment of staff and department culture in relation to EDI. There's implementation of social and media marketing best practices, and more than just putting up something on the screen saying it's Black History Month, or it's Asian Celebration Month, or it's Pride Month, or Indigenous Celebration. There's actual meaningful information being put up on a regular basis. Engagement in the community and advocacy and philanthropy. implementation of inclusive policies and hiring practices. So similar to what Nino, you were talking about, that you're making sure that you're doing the best practices you can and making it available for all, and people can see it's transparent and engaged. You're implementing inclusive programming that's reflective of the student community. So as I was talking with the person I was on the previous call with, Sarah from Lakehead, you're reaching out to your community groups on campus and finding out what is it we can offer that will make your experience with us that much better. And you're embedding the training for full and part-time staff, and you're creating an intentional education plan that will evolve year over year. And then finally, the Pantamount, if you're at level 5, you're the driving force on campus. Everyone on your campus comes to you. You know, you might have that human rights or inclusion office, but they're telling all their partners, go see what's going on in athletics and recreation, or the faculty of health, or however you're partnered up. Your staff demographics are reflective of what campus community looks like, or it's becoming more reflective. Your programming is supportive of a diverse participant community. There's collaboration across the campus, supplying resources to them. Your community education and engagement opportunities in a two-way direction with both your immediate community as well as the greater surrounding community. You have annual evaluation of department and EDI priorities. Those are based on specific metrics. You're measuring them, you're evaluating them, you're judging yourself on how well you do on them. And then each area has continuous evaluation of concern or improvement. So it's a lot to take in there, folks. So what I'd like to do though, is we're going to do a shorter breakout room and answer a couple of these questions. So does your institution have a human rights office or something similar to that, a diversity office? And if so, what programs and training do they provide? And then the second part is, does your department or faculty have an EDI committee or a diversity committee? And then again, at what stage do you think it is in that relationship map? Again, understanding 1 is there's nothing, and 5 is you're the cream of the crop and everyone's coming to you, and everyone else is somewhat in between. So a lot to digest. We'll make it a little shorter though. I apologize, just because we're crunched on time. So we'll go 5 minutes, and then we'll come back for a bit of a wrap up. Sarah's just putting us into the rooms. An hour is never enough time.
No, not with this topic either.
No, no. All right, I think everyone's back. So I've just kind of posted up the reflection slide again, very similar to the last one, of course. We'll try and keep it as short and succinct. What would be some similarities from across institutions in your group? I don't know if anyone would like to put their hand up. What would be some of the similarities in reference to where you see yourself with diversity committees or not diversity committees, or offering inclusive programming and policies? Art, go ahead.
Just really quickly, the common theme for us was, I guess, progress. No matter where we were starting from or where we're at, everybody was talking about the things they're doing to go further with this, to improve. So that was really, really nice to hear.
Rory.
There is a form of guidance somewhere in the school from another department, or even within across other institutions. As Sonia said, OCAA has an EDI committee now, and UTM was a leader in some of the policy creation for that.
Great, thank you. I do know, yes, in Ontario, I'm going to presume in the other conferences it would be the same. The OCAA and the OUA have both created diversity statements and guiding principles as well on the varsity side of the house. I think though, as recreation professionals, we need to make sure that we're doing the same, or we're pushing that envelope as well. We don't want to, just be, oh yeah, the OUA or the yo-yo sport or whatever has it, so that's fine. Any other comments from the groups? Again, I can't see everyone's hand up or not, So one of the things, folks, just as we're getting towards the last few minutes, as kind of a wrap up, this was a extremely high level discussion, of course, just to kind of get our brains moving if they already hadn't been, in terms of what is EDI and maybe what's the direction we might want to look at taking our departments, or going back to those who are in charge of our departments, if you're not the one that's in charge of your department, and having those candid conversations. One of the takeaways that I think is extremely important, and I think you'll start to see more and more across campuses, is that a diversity committee or an EDI committee will start to formulate in each of our departments. And I think recreation specifically, but athletics and recreation, or faculty of health and athletics and recreation, we're very well suited because we are such front-facing entities on our campus. Our engagement and our touch points, while extremely broad, similar to our other partners across campus, somehow seem to always be more far-reaching, and the students that are engaged with us are the leaders. Lots of our other peers across campus, of course, have leaders as well. I'm always amazed at that level of leadership and cross collaboration, though, that our students seem to have across campus. I'm going to brag a little because one of our former student leaders is here on campus, and she's working for another school, Queens. And so, it's all about how we all develop our leaders and they get in now into the workforce, which is fantastic to see. And I know if Zach was on the call, Sandra would brush off her chest and go, look, there's my shiny apple down at Queens as well. And that's what we want to get, though, right? We want to have our student leaders grow and develop, and then start taking on these hard topics as well, and being those next round of leaders. Last kind of question I'll put out there, folks, is more on what more information do you want to see from NIRSA, the NIRSA Canadian leadership team, as it relates to EDI. And I'll just throw this out. Personally, this could be, it's a never ending story, unfortunately. And I say the unfortunately because I'm in my late 40s, and I've been maybe not working around EDI for a long time, but it's always been in the back of my place of where I've been. I've always been working towards what it looks like in a better position. And it just seems like it's that never ending story, unfortunately. So where do we see it as professionals? What is it that you would like that, and Sandra's on the call here, she's your member-elect chair for Canadian Leadership Team, that then she can inform the CLT and, those of us who want to put up our hand and support more, what is it we'd like to do? What more can we do? I'll put it out there. And if you don't want to put your hand up and say, you can always email as well. Oh, 2 participants raised their hand. Rory, go ahead. Or is that your hand was still up? Next one, Art.
This is tricky. And I just want to, I guess, expand a little bit on what Sandra was mentioning earlier. I hope she doesn't mind me doing this, but where I'm going with this, Sandra had given a list like this of all the amazing things that they're working on. And you heard her speak about how overwhelmed she and others, and like us, have felt through this process, not knowing if we're doing the right things, not knowing if we're doing it quickly enough, feeling like we're not doing it quickly enough. So I guess what I would ask is similar to what you did with this committee piece, where there's milestones, objectives, if there's additional milestones that that can, I don't have any examples to provide, but just to give us a sense of confidence that we're doing some right things. I know this is so hard to quantify. I get that part of it. But that's part of the struggle that I think maybe Sandra was referencing earlier, and that I feel and that some of my colleagues have felt is, we're doing a lot of work and feeling a lot of anxiety about trying to do the right things for the right reasons, just not sure if we're on the right path all the time. So I don't know if that helps or hurts, but.
Oh, that's great, Art. Jackie and then Sandra. And if you're wondering what that growling was in the background, that's Art's dog going, pet me, pet me.
Yeah, for me, it's all about shared experiences. So the opportunity to learn from one another in a roundtable like this is invaluable, and just continuing for the opportunity to facilitate these conversations within, again, this safe space of leaders that's really just trying to put our best foot forward and ensure that we have opportunities for all. So for me, it's about the shared experiences that we still have the opportunity to have those and engage in those.
Fantastic, thank you. Sandra, then Michael.
Thanks, Peter. As our Canadian leadership team sets its action plan for the upcoming year, we are looking at the development of various working groups, and certainly EDI was identified as an area of interest for many of us, if not all of us. So we will certainly look to include other Canadian representatives in any of the working groups that involve EDI. But one idea that came up, much like what we did with risk management, and Jared could speak to this, is we developed over some time in consultation a set of best practices when it came to risk management. And I think maybe something like that might be helpful for us as well, is what are some of the best practices that institutions are using, but what could be something that would be a unified front for all of us, so that there is that tool for us to make that comparison, much like you had presented in the EDI milestone guide. Similar things, whether it comes to hiring policies, practices around marketing and social media. So that's one idea that's been discussed, and that would take, again, some time, and much that, as was suggested by Jackie, is consultation and us coming together again. So we certainly will probably be looking for some people to get involved.
Thanks, Sandra. I will mention, folks, the milestone guide, when it gets put out, we'll have a lot of those best practices and resources to share, but definitely we can make sure that's as broad as we can. Michael.
I think the beauty about these types of forums is to hear what's going on in other institutions. And, I'm sure a number of us wrote down, okay, got to follow up with this school, that school, this person. And so I wonder if there's a way to facilitate that. It's almost the sharing of, best practice / cool practices that you could just jump on a call a little later and be like, tell me about this a little bit more, because there's a lot of cool stuff going on. And then the one specific topic that I really am looking for whatever expertise exists around is the decolonization of sport and recreation. I think given, where it lands with the Canadian context as well, it's one of these topics that I think a number of us probably struggle with. What does that actually look like? How do we make significant progress there? Because we all know the value of it. So just as a very specific topic, that is definitely at the forefront of our minds. So, and thanks again for hosting this.
Thank you, Michael. Great points. I did throw my email, folks, into the chat box. So if you, I'm happy to collect any questions or comments, and I'll collate them for Sandra and send them off to her as well. If there's cognizant of time, if there's any other further comments or questions, I'll open the floor up for everyone. Michael, your hand's up again? Or just, no, you kept it up. No worries, it's all good. Well, on that note, folks, again, this is just, it's a snippet of information. There's so many tangents and realms. We could be talking for weeks on this, which is good and bad, unfortunately. So I hope that you got something out of this. You got the juices running in the brain. You're thinking about other ways to do it. You're seeing different faces and names, and you're figuring out how to contact them. And we're going to go from there. So really appreciate everyone coming out. Sandra's got her hand up. I think she's got one last comment to go, though.
Yeah, one last comment. A special thank you to you, Peter, for your time and expertise and your direction here. And then to Jenna, who helped to coordinate our roundtable series for June. So thank you very much. And thanks, Sarah, for coordinating the show.
Thank you very much, everyone. If I don't see you again for a few weeks or months, depending on when the next roundtable is, have a great time. Enjoy the weather, do the best you can, and stay safe out there.
Bye, everybody.